Look, I don't need to tell you how big of a deal Warzone is. Starting around the time of the big shared indoors bad time we all had in 2020 that I can't name or YouTube gets mad, people flock to the game to get their Battle Royale fix. There's a lot that can be said about Warzone, both good and bad, but here's the secret. I've never actually played it. Yeah, somehow I missed that whole thing. I was probably busy getting reminded I'm the worst Apex Legends player ever around that time, but here we are today, and I figure it's about time I give Warzone a shot. I love Call of Duty, and I like Battle Royale games, so it's well overdue and kind of a no-brainer. Plus, I get to play as Michael Myers. I mean, come on. My channel's name is Haunted House, of course I'm a horror movie junkie. Look, I'm a simple man, you let me play as the Shape and I'm gonna play your game. It's just gonna happen. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the interesting with the new Warzone in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and how that experience has been for a complete noob. As always, be sure to give me your thoughts on everything we discuss in the comments below, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Let's tune in. Starting off with the good. I think a lot of times as gamers we take for granted how good Call of Duty feels to play. I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but it really is the measuring stick that we compare every other first-person shooter game to. And for good reason. They've made a lot of improvements over the years to both the shooting mechanics and the movement, and basically what I imagined a Call of Duty Battle Royale would be is what I got when I booted up Warzone for the first time. A lot of the movement and mechanics were what I expected, and it was nice to be able to dive in and experience that for the first time. Now, while I have never played Warzone before, I have watched people play it. I have watched streamers such as Tim the Tatman and others check out the game, so I was a little familiar with the mechanics, like plating and everything like that. But getting in and experiencing it for the first time was definitely a different overall experience. One thing I was familiar with from watching other people play the game is the loadout system and how important that is to Warzone. For those of you guys that don't know, I usually play Apex Legends, and with that game, currently there is no loadout system, no preset class you can make and pick up during the match to utilize. You just have to use whatever ground loot you find. So while I knew it was important for me to have a good loadout set up, I unfortunately just prestiged, so I didn't have anything unlocked really. I was a little worried going into it that would be detrimental to my overall experience, but what I found was the ground loot is actually really well done. Almost any weapon I picked up felt good to use during my play session, and I didn't really have any problem finding a good progression of upgrades on the ground loot and in crates. It's just really hard to beat that overall classic Call of Duty feel when it comes to shooting and moving around, engaging with enemies, and that translated well to the Warzone experience, in my opinion. I have to say it's nice to be able to play a fresh new Battle Royale game where I'm able to get excited about each new engagement, feel the tension as I'm getting closer to being one of the top teams, and feel that disappointment when I do inevitably get wrecked. But in getting killed, I got to experience another nice aspect of Warzone, in my opinion, the gulag system. If you get killed, you get a chance to win a 1v1 against another player for a respawn opportunity, and I felt that was great. I'm sure eventually the excitement will wear off, but it was pretty hype getting into that like 1v1 deathmatch scenario with so much on the line. I really enjoyed that aspect and the opportunity for the reset that you earn, and I have to give them props for that. Now let's discuss the bad, some of the things I didn't like as much. As you can tell in my gameplay here, I'm playing on the Urzikstan map, which if you're familiar with Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is actually not the new map that launched with this new season of Warzone. The thing is, I didn't really realize that at first. When I booted up Warzone for the first time, it kind of shuffled me into the boot camp playlist. I appreciate them having a playlist for new players to get them familiar with the game, but I feel like it could have been a little clearer with what was going on, especially since I kind of wanted to experience what the game had to offer that was new and exciting. It also made me feel a little bad when I finally realized what had actually happened and I got put into this playlist, because it's not just a new player playlist, there's actually AI bots from my understanding in the game, so that made some of the kills I got feel a little little cheapened, which is not great. Overall, I like having a new player baby's first playpen area for everybody to get used to the game, and maybe I just missed something in my excitement to finally check out Warzone, but I feel like everything could have been a little clearer. I did eventually check out Area 99, but that'll be a whole different discussion for another video, because it's very evident that I need to get used to Warzone and get familiar with it before I jump into a resurgent style map. Another thing that I didn't really like as much was actually the floor looting system. Now let me explain, because I know I just praised the floor loot system for the ability to grab weapons and use them and have them actually feel good. But what I'm talking about specifically is the clutter with everything on the ground. It feels like everything you pick up in this game is very small. You have to be very precise while picking it up, and it seems like a lot of stuff is unnecessarily cluttered. There's a ton of tactical and lethal grenades available, a ton of kill streaks and different equipment items. Of course, at this point, I don't really know what any of these things do aside from the grenades, but it really felt like it made the pace of the game come to a complete crawl when I was trying to pick up stuff on the ground, because I had to look at it specifically and figure out what it was. It was a little cumbersome. I'm used to playing Apex Legends where the items look pretty big, and at a glance you can tell exactly what they are and what they're going to do for you. I appreciate the realism, quote unquote, of Call of Duty, but the readability of items that are in the environment or on the floor could be improved, in my opinion, for the user experience. It would just make it easier for everybody, not just new players, but even people who have been playing the game for a long time. I also ran into this issue where I would be trying to pick up grenades or plates off the ground, whatever it may be, and I kept accidentally swapping my gun, like really quickly, with just the tap of the square button on the PlayStation controller. I'm not sure if this is a bug or a setting in the menu that I can change, but I feel like you should have to hold down the square button to actually change out your weapon so you don't accidentally drop the gun you really enjoy using. Again, this is probably just issues that I have being a new player and not being familiar with the system, but it is something I noticed, and it happened more than one time, where I would get into a firefight and realize, oh, this is a completely different gun. I dropped my fully kitted weapon for a blue or a green, and I guess I'm just going with it now. Some other things I noticed that I didn't really enjoy were audio issues where I wouldn't be able to hear enemies who were above me or nearby until it was way too late. As an Apex enjoyer, I am very familiar with audio issues, so it wasn't really anything out of my realm of expectation, but it is something I felt I should note in this review. Some interesting observations that weren't necessarily good or bad, just something I wanted noted in this video, is that I can really tell why people get so addicted to Warzone. I can tell why people keep coming back to this game and find it so enjoyable to play. It's nice to be able to have that familiar shooter feeling, but in a bite-sized battle royale experience. And I appreciate that they have different versions of Warzone depending on what you want to play. If you want to play big maps with a lot of people, you can do that on Urzikstan or Verdansk when it comes back. If you want to get into the action and have some quick fun matches, the Resurgence maps are there to cater to that experience. There really seems to be a little bit of something for everyone with Warzone, and if you get tired of one thing, it's always nice to have some variety that you can swap to that still feels familiar. I think that Call of Duty especially benefits from this, because if I get tired of playing Warzone but I still want to play something in that same vein, I can play zombies, I can play multiplayer. I'm still getting progression towards the battle pass that I have for the game, but I'm able to switch up my experience depending on how I feel that day. Overall, while there are things that I feel like could be improved in the game, I have enjoyed what I've experienced thus far, and I am excited to continue to get familiar with Warzone and explore what it has for me. It'll be interesting to see how long that new game excitement and glow stays with me and how quickly it loses its luster after I get more familiar with the game. But as of right now, I'm really enjoying my experience with it. It's definitely different than what I'm familiar with, but it offers an experience that I haven't really had up to this point, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So those are my thoughts as of right now while playing Warzone for the very first time. Do you have any tips or advice for me as I get into Warzone? Anything that could help make my experience better would be greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe so you see our next video, and like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. It gives me some good feedback on how to make these videos better for you guys. Thanks, I really appreciate it. But with that said, I'm gonna go try and get familiar with Area 99. So wish me luck there. Make sure to eat well, stay hydrated, take care of yourself and those around you, and I'll see you next time, friends.